Today we're going to talk about proportions. You have to remember that when solving application problems with proportions, you have to translate the words into a proportion. The same unit has to be in both numerators as well as the same unit in both denominators. The unknown number will be given a value of n. So for example, you have unit A in the numerator on the left. You also have unit A in the numerator on the right. Denominators are the same, unit B on the left and unit B on the right. Remember, you have to have equality in the middle of proportions. Once the proportion is set up, you're going to cross multiply, and then lastly we'll divide by the number multiplied to the n. Our first example, we have a proportion already set up. So what we'll do is we'll cross multiply. So we'll multiply 4 times the n equal to the 0.2 times 0.14. On the right, we'll go ahead and multiply the 0.2 times 0.14, and we have the 0.028. We have the 4n still on the left. Next, we'll divide by the number multiplied to n. So we'll divide both sides by 4. That will tell us that n is equal to 0.007. So our unknown number is the 0.007. Our next example is a word problem that we'll actually have to set up. Here we're told that a can of lemonade comes with a measuring scoop. Directions for mixing are 2 scoops of mix for every 24 cups of water. How much water will be needed to make the entire can of lemonade if there are 40 scoops of mix? For this problem, we have 2 scoops of mix requires 24 cups of water. So when we set up our proportion, we'll have 2 scoops over 24 cups of water. So on the right, the proportion units have to be exactly the same. So we'll have scoops in our numerator and the cups of water in our denominator. So when the question is how much water is needed to make an entire can of lemonade if there are 40 scoops of mix, so we'll have 40 in our numerator on the right. Our n will be used for the unknown value. Once the proportion is set up, we'll cross multiply again. We have 24 times 40 equals 2 times n. 24 times 40 will give us 960 equal to 2n. And lastly, we'll divide by the number multiplied by n, so we'll divide by 2. Our answer is 480. So this tells us that we will need 480 cups of water to make the entire can of lemonade. Now we're going to look at solving percent problems using proportions. The things that we have to remember is that we have to translate the word problem into a proportion. This time, the number next to the word is goes in the numerator. The number after of goes in the denominator. The number part of the percent will always go over 100, and the unknown number will be given a value of n. So what we'll have is over of equal percent over 100. Once the proportion is set up, we'll cross multiply. And again, we'll divide by the number multiplied to the n. Let's look at an example. In the example that I have here, we have 6.5% of what number is 11.96? Here, when we see the question of what number, this is where the letter N will go. So when we set up the proportion, 6.5 will go over 100. Of what number? We don't know what number, so the N will go in our denominator. Is 11.96. So we'll have 11.96 in our numerator. Once we have the proportion set up, we'll cross multiply. We have 6.5N equals 11.96 times 100. 6.5N is equal to 1,196. Lastly, we'll divide by the number multiplied to N. So we'll divide by 6.5. So the unknown value is 184.